Yeah, yeah, I know, but I mean, what I'm trying to say is I think that position is becoming less and less okay, right? I mean, there's more and more global opposition to Earth exploitation. Yes, it is still happening. Yes, as a result of globalization, multinational corporations, all these sorts of things, it's going on at a pace, but there are more and more global opponents. And I mean, I would wager to say that if you went in to talk to any of the CEOs of a mining corporation or an oil company or Walmart or whatever, and you said, why don't you care about the environment? Or why don't you care about people? They would say, oh, we do. They wouldn't just say, oh, well, because I don't have to. I don't care. I'm just making money. Who cares about the earth? That's stupid. They can't say that. They used to be able to say that. They used to be able to say, I don't care about other people, I care about my country. You can't say that anymore. Because we live in a global world and people won't stand for it. So Nike gets in trouble for its factories in China. Apple Computer gets in trouble for its e-waste in China. Company after company get in trouble for their maquiladoras in Latin America, factories, and the conditions for the workers there. So I mean, that's what it takes. Is I think just that persistence, you know. I don't know what to do other than that.
Let me make a suggestion. I think we in Indonesia have a problem about planetary ethics. It's not about theology issue, I think, but economic issue and philosophy issue. First, I think it's an economic issue because that global economy, the capitalists came, infest their model and make an exploitation. Yeah. Examples in Papua. Papua is full of resource of gold. But Papua is American capitalists. 90% about their resources America, and about 5% maybe in Australia. So this is about in Indonesia. This is a global issue about economic, not theology. And two, this is the issue of philosophy. We in Asia, we have a unique character about treating nature. Yeah, we in Western we put job is put in the bed. In Asia we put in the dining table. Yeah, North Sumatra we eat dog, but we can treat in nature well. It's different from Western. I think it's a philosophical issue because in Asia we searching for knowledge. It's the goal. The purpose. The summon bonum is wisdom. But in Western, we searching for philosophy, for knowledge. Is to power, to exploit, to conquer, to manage. This is a different philosophy. We in Asia we eat dog, but we can live in harmony in the nature. Now this is a philosophical issue, but not theological issue, I think.
That off. So first of all, I think both of what you said are a part of the planetary ethic I was trying to communicate. I would disagree though. I think economics is a theological issue, fundamentally a theological issue. The way in which economics is about the rules of how we live in the world together. That's what it's about. And that's theological, right? If you believe that the creation is shared by all human beings and other animals, right? That's a creation theology issue, right? It's called common goods. That everything should have access to that which it needs to thrive in life. That's a theological understanding of creation. And that goes against quote unquote free market capitalism, right? So it's theologically opposed to free market capitalism. So it is a theological issue. I think epistemological issues are also theological issues in terms of how you construct what the end goal of knowledge is. Is it wisdom? There's wisdom traditions in the West too, as well in the East. Or is it, as you said, power? Or is it, I would say, in a planetary perspective, what I would argue is that knowledge is about ethics. Always about ethics. So I think that it's, yes, you're right, it's different, right? In Indonesia than in America, it's different from there than in Latin American countries, right? Or in Russia. I mean, there are differences. But that's, I think, what we need to talk about is how do we navigate those differences and still admit the common grounds of this planet that we live on, right?
I'm worried about this planetary ethics is have a same spirit with globalization. So I think this is a similar spirit with the globalization. I think that Western needs to learn to about how to treating the nature without to make a new form, a new system like planetary ethics, a common ground together to combine to. I think that's a same as globalization spirit, and the end of the planetary ethics is to contrast.
No, I think I would disagree, and here's why. Look, whether we like it or not, we're globalized. The options are to figure out how to do that in a way that is more fair, just, and ecologically sound, or we can all say, so long, I'm going back to my country, you go to your country, stay where you are, I'll stay where I am, we'll only produce within our own borders, that's it. How do you, if you want to disentangle the global, then that means we go back to the local and say farewell to one another. And if you want to do that, that's a different story, right? And we can have that argument. But if we are going to live together on a planet, and one that we are intertwined with one another already, we have to figure out a way to do that. And one alternative is this planetary model against the global model, which is the domination, this imposition of sameness everywhere. That's trying to recognize how do we connect with one another through our differences and allow for differences. So, yeah, I mean, you're right. We can sort of disentangle everything and stop interacting with one another. I could stop trying to learn Bahasa, and you wouldn't have to speak English. In fact, well, why stop there? You could go back to being Japanese or Balinese, right? Where do you stop this disentanglement, right? Maybe I should go back to Germany, right? I don't know. But that's the question, right? I don't think there's any going back. I think we only have to figure out how to move forward.
Yeah, I agree if we can treating planetary ethics as an alternative. But I disagree if the planetary ethics will be a common ground together. Because in our culture, we have a very rich culture in the different treating to the nature. Examples in Tapis village, Tapis Dayak tribe. This tribe have a different how to treating, how to live in harmony with the nature. Crocodile they see as the body, a backbone of the earth who be a foundation of all the earth, the land. In harmony.
Yeah, but how is that? How can that not? How does that not fit into a planetary ethic? How does that not? How does that challenge a planetary ethic? How does it? Why is that opposed to a planetary ethic? Because I don't see how what you're saying is not allowed for in a planetary ethic. That's precisely what I'm saying. Is that just like there are many different islands to Indonesia that have their own cultures and their own relationships and this sort of thing, those should be able to thrive. The pelagic sort of identity, right, should not be smoothed over with, oh, but we're all, we're all Indonesian, so let's just get rid of all these underlying differences. Right? That's what a planetary ethic is about, is trying to connect us and say, look, we are different, and that's okay. How can we arrange our economics to respect those differences and our exchanges to respect those differences, rather than saying we all have to have Walmart, right? Or I can, my company can come to Papua and steal your gold, right? Without any concerns for the local environment. So I think one way of doing that from a planetary perspective is to return control of resources to local areas, right? So that you have control over, that we all have control over our own water systems, over our own production of electricity, these sorts of things. Now we can trade with one another, but then it's on our own terms, right? It's not because someone has come and said, I'm going to take this from you, make it into whatever, and then widgets and sell it back to you, right? But it's because you said, look, this is something we can offer to the community, the planetary community.
Yeah, I just have a little worry about
it's okay. That's
the
fine.
spirit of domination in Western culture to dominate.
Well, Chinese culture has that too.
Yeah, but in basic philosophy,
And Japanese culture has that too.
Live in harmony.
Not really.
Yeah,
China did a bad job.
Yeah, because I know. I'm not Chinese in.
I don't think But China did a bad job too. So did Russia, right? Nobody's done a great job.
Yeah.
Have you been to India lately? India's done a pretty bad job too.
I think behind this question, there is an argument that, the West has been exploiting the earth for so many years, hundreds of years since the revolution, the Industrial Revolution. And now, we, the poorer countries, just started it. Now, why are you trying to fuss?
Right, I'm not fussing with you.
We are just trying to become as rich as you are. Now you are trying to make us remain poor. That's the argument.
Right.
That's the problem.
I
People think that
completely understand. Yeah, no, and I completely understand that dynamic. It's the same as when white feminists in the U.S. began this third wave feminism that is non-essentialist, right? Many women of color said, wait, we're just getting our power, and now you're telling us we can't get power, right? Because there is no such thing as gender anymore. What's going on? This is what, and this is a hard thing to navigate, right? This is why it's important, I think, to always be contextual, right? So this is obviously, I'm articulating this from my context as a Westerner, right? Obviously, what planetary ethics means in different, or what planetary ethics means here is different from what it means in the U.S. In the U.S., I have to convince my students that there's a problem with globalization. Here, I don't have to convince you of that. It's a different sort of thing. So I guess what's important then is realizing that, I think from the perspective of globalization, you're absolutely right. Why would the U.S. sign a Kyoto Protocol that makes it pay more than other countries? That's not fair. For us, from a planetary perspective, it's the responsibility of industrialized and Western nations to pay more for the energy transition than it is for someplace like Indonesia or any African countries, right? So the point is that it has been unequal, and that should be levelized through quote unquote the countries that had a free ride on fossil fuels paying more to develop the alternatives. That sort of thing. So that this sort of self-development, or whatever you want to call it, can continue. No, I understand this concern. I do. That's what I don't know how to address it other than saying what I just said.
Well, I went to East Kalimantan in June this year, and I saw I was taken to the mine, the coal mine, one of the largest mine exactly in Indonesia, and it is very devastating to see the effect, the damage on the earth that this mine company is causing, because they dig, I think, maybe 100, 200 meters down inside, and then they just open.
Right.
And they say it's much cheaper to have an open mine than to have an underground mine, and because they can easily take the coal out without causing much accident, and many accidents to humans, but not the earth is very bad.
And my question would also be, it's a ruse, right? It's a ruse to say that is development for all the people of Indonesia. It's underdevelopment for all the people that live around there, right? It's destroying locality. It's destroying a functioning ecosystem. And it's also not lifting all boats in Indonesia. I guarantee you there's certain people, maybe not even that are Indonesians, that are making lots of money off of that. Does that contribute to the overall well-being of Indonesia? And I think that's the myth of development. That's the myth of the globalization of the free market economy, is that this idea that once the free market enters, all boats will be risen by the rising tide, which is a bad metaphor now, global climate change. But,
yeah.
But this idea that everyone will benefit. Well, I'm not so sure that's the case. There may be some short-term benefits. What are the long-term effects of this type of development?
Yeah, I think many people are trapped or deceived by that kind of promises that you will get rich once development enters your area. For example, I was in West Sulawesi earlier this year also, and I saw how this sawi plantations are being created in those areas, and people started leaving their paddy fields, their plants, because and their other jobs, because they think that they can get money easier and faster by working on the sawi plantations. And in the long run, when the sawi plantations are gone, they will become poor because the earth will become infertile and nothing is left of it. And many people don't realize the side effects of this.
Right, and then you also eventually lose your land, and then that leads to immigration to cities or urban areas where you're dependent on someone else for your daily needs, right? And this sort of thing, which is more expensive. And so, yeah, I mean, this was not an easy thing, and I don't mean to get some ideas, and I don't know what the answers are, to be honest. Maybe this is a bad idea. It's the only one I can come up with at the moment, So, but I mean, yeah. I mean, what are the solutions? I don't know.
Just share with you when I was in West Virginia in 2006. For example, the United States, and in West Virginia there are some industries already shut down, like one industrial area in Kuliah Umum, and also the coal mining in someone close to Modern Town.
Yeah, Detroit too.
Yeah.
Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit. And also the glass industry in the downtown, close to downtown, Modern Town. When I passed these areas and I saw the coal mining, I just remember Kalimantan, Borneo, where the people get the coal mining, so I moved to Kalimantan. When I passed the gas station, I saw the Exxon Mobil, and I just remember Luxembourg, actually, the Exxon Mobil. In fact, what was that mining area is there, because I came straight from Banda Aceh to the United States. And also when I was in Germany in 2008, and they took me to the already shut down industrial area, they changed it to become a tourism area. But Germany and also the United States, they still build their buildings and things like that, and it's like thinking that, okay, all these materials, ingredients, things like that, is quite country in Indonesia. So, yeah, in India, I saw also poverty, people living very, especially the Dalit people, very, very poor condition. And then, only to see this and experience this, then we will start some initiative. That's only very little things, like, start to think about we preach or our way of life. So my heart was hurt in seeing that situation, especially because it was after the tsunami when I went to the United States. And as I said, very small initiative, just like be very careful with all these plastic bags, because in Indonesia we produce plastic bags. I started with all this because to go to this, to change all our theology and things like that takes time, 1,000 years. Yeah, so just small things. I don't know what you got in Mount Pranama just yesterday experience, but I think I start from these small things and then awareness.
Right. I mean, that's what it takes, right? Because the little, what Nancy Becker calls little moves against destructiveness. Little points of resistance. yourself, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Because by the time you're 80, that's 80 things that you changed. So, so it is hard. And it's not going to change tomorrow, which is why we need each other
Yeah.
to help keep us accountable, right? That's what churches can be, and seminaries and groups like this, classrooms can be communities of accountability that help us say, oh wait, maybe you should rethink that idea. Maybe you should think about your own consumption. Maybe you should stop buying leather bags on because it used to be a cow.
Yeah.
Things like that.
But then the alternative is plastic.
Yeah.
Or cloth, or hemp, if you're in Berkeley. Hemp.
I want to raise the biggest epistemology problem. Rather than I think embrace the difference and respect it. And that's the problem. How can we embrace and respect if our community that disrespect our point of view of the earth, of the ecology?
Well, I always think of it like this.
It's kind of, I don't know, I'm quoting sometimes dissertation about it's kind of risky hospitality.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. That's the wager, right? Of hospitality. That's the wager of welcoming the stranger. That's the wager of loving the enemy. Right? It is a risky hospitality, and I always think of it like this: like a small model. I didn't choose my family, and I would never be friends with them if they were my family. Right? Some of them, right? But I love them. They're my family. So I think it's that model helps me think about when I encounter someone that I fundamentally disagree with. How can I live with you? Well, we didn't choose to be born in the same time, in the same place, in the same world, but here we are. Much like we don't choose our parents. So, yeah. I mean, maybe none of you feel that way about anyone in your family, but I have, very different ideas sometimes, and very different personality in politics than some of my family. So, something like that. I don't know. How do you do it?
Still thinking.
Yeah.
So I just want to know how much the effects of this eco-theology in the West. The people that share about the ecology and is related to theology is came from Western. So how it's affected the first way. And second, it seems like that the books, their right and everything that paper and everything that's about the idea in theology, it seems just how we back to the nature, how we correlate to the nature, how we respect them, how we use them. Can we just think about the system that's the exploitation, just like Kevin said about that, the system that all of us, not only in the Western but in the Eastern too, that we use the nature is so bad. How can theology be like a critics
criticize this system and bring something about the system that can make we can protect this nature. And I mean that everything depends on nature. I think that why we came to the ecology right now is because we already feel that something our circumstance in this world is different. So okay, the Asia, the Western, we must save our nature back because we are in the places because we depend on the nature. So I think how can the theology, Christian, say that? Criticize the system that right now it's like the Kalimantan and then the industry in the Papua that not belong to us, not belong to the nation, not belong to our home, but it's belong to others.
So how can it be critical of, I understand the first question about the Western part. What is the second question? How can it be critical of the system, like globalization or?
The economic system. Because like the palm oil and then the mining it's about the system behind it.
Right. No, and a lot of, I could do a whole thing on eco-economics too, that critiques the economic system. There are lots of Marxist-based and post-Marxist-based critiques of the economic system as the major problem with ecological issues. And so there is a whole field of economic critique out there from a lot of the, like the liberation theologians, right? Picked up on it. And that's what their primary critique is of the economic system. And of largely Christianity being complicit with Catholic and not being as socialist as it needs to be. So there is that critique out there. And a lot of the people that I had up there do critique the economic system as a major part of there's a selling in favor book called Home Economics, right? Because boy costs the earth.
Is there any influence for the industrial innovation that use nature to produce for something? Is there any influence for them?
Yeah. Like so, there is one of the famous influences is this guy who was the CEO of a huge industrial international carpet stuff to the floor, right? He read a book by Thomas Perry, right? It was this theologian, and he had a conversion experience. And what he did was he then began to read ecological theology, economics, and what he did is he transformed that whole company. They no longer use toxic glues in their carpet. They only lease their carpets, and when the carpets are done, they have to be send them back to the company so the company can recycle them. They do all sorts of more social and benefits for their workers now. So there are some companies that are transformed, right? And there are different ways of doing business. Some companies have now started to do, instead of just the economic bottom line, they call it the triple bottom line. Social, environmental, economic. How are our actions affecting those three things? And not just economic, not just the GDP or the shareholders, but the social, environmental, and economic. So, of course, that's not the dominant practice, but there are people doing it now, and there weren't 20 years ago. In terms of how much of this is Western, well, a lot of it is, but you also find academics in all Africa, a bunch of different African nations, all over Latin America. You find it in China. There's a huge eco movement in China right now. is that country is just ravaged, right, through development, largely by its own government, right? And so much so that I've talked to several people who say, who provide an experience like this. In the past 20 years, the landscape of China has changed so much that I don't even know where I was born anymore, because that place is totally gone and totally transformed and doesn't look anything like where they were born. Right? So that's the type of transformation that's going on in China right now. So more and more Chinese scholars are reading Indian activists are huge. Mandana Shiva is one of those global leaders in the environmental movement, and as well as feminism. There are other people in India that are working to restore the Ganges River, right? Because this river is one of the most polluted rivers in the world, largely due to the idea that it's a goddess and can't be polluted. You can throw dead bodies in it, and your garbage and it can't be polluted. So there's all sorts of things from all corners of the world, indigenous communities all over the world, from Australia to Indonesia, and Africa and Latin America, right, are beginning to join in the ecumenical sort of indigenous movement that largely combats and deals with these same issues of economics, globalization, and environmental issues. So most of what I gave you in terms of Christian theology was from my context, right, as a Christian theologist. Some of them were from Latin America. There are others I know in Africa that are doing this sort of thing. But again, people in Islamic countries all over are now doing sort of green Islamic theology.
I think that our ecology is not longer to speak about our nature, back to nature, how we respect them, but how we criticize the system.
Yes.
I think that because even we talk about that, we face some giant wall. We cannot shoot that.
Yeah.
Whether we knew how this wall is made of, something like that.
Right.
From what is made of, so we can make it fall down. So that's what I think that because for these recent years, we just talk about that. We just talk back to nature. Yeah, we know about that. But I think theology must further only idea. Theology not longer just about, speak the truth, speak the ideal, but how to practice this.
Right.
Because this is what we really need.
It's about theopraxis, right?
Yeah.
It's a very
Every theology must be in practice.
Right.
That if the theology is not in practice, but it's for us.
No, I mean that's you're absolutely right. I mean, this is why many feminists, eco sort of thinkers, critical race theorists have focused so much in the past 50 to 60 years on structural sin, right? The problem of the structures, not individual sin, but structural sin. The buildup of these structures that seem to be overpowering, right? And what do we do in the face of them?
I think that this is our chance to show that our step is going next, not only in this point, but before. Not only just talk about the nature, but how to criticize the system that uses nature.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
I can see this facing now about horizontal boundary. So this main stick, main step I think to solve this problem, especially in Indonesia, in major areas. We are facing now. We are often conflict, social conflict. Do you think this my correct step to focus in religious dialogue? Religious. What do you think about it?
About focusing on interreligious dialogue?
Yeah. Yeah, especially in Tarakan City, East Kalimantan.
Right, no, I think it's huge, I think it's very necessary, right? Let's focus on interreligious dialogue, right? Because if we can't solve the human-to-human problem, right, then how are we ever going to get to the problem of the non-human, right? Because our human problem seems so much more important, right? They're like right here, you know? And if we can't get past that, we'll always say, look, the environment is a secondary issue. Even though it should be, I think, the context for all issues. I also think, however, that environmentalism can be a way in which religions can come together. It's a catalyst for dialogue, right?
Yeah.
So, I'll give you the Jordan River, right? The Jordan River goes through Syria, Palestine, Israel, right? Not a very friendly area right now, right? You've got Christians, Muslims, Jews, all in countries, nationalities, all at each other's throat. In the meantime, the Jordan River barely makes it to the sea anymore, which means that the sea is dying, right? And the river system is dying. It's polluted by large industrial projects in Israel. What it's going to take for the Jordan River to save and see along with it is it's going to take interreligious dialogue between Christians, Muslims, and Jews, but also multinational cooperation in Jordan, Syria, and Israel, and Palestine. So, my point is this: is that a possible way to deflect whatever the human differences might be and recognize, look, we all need this river, right? So we have to come together to figure out a way to save this river, or we're all going to be in trouble, right? So is that a way to slip interreligious dialogue sort of in the back door, right? Oh look, we came together and we solved this problem with the Jordan River. Maybe we can solve other problems. In other words, can the common grounds of our planet, our air, our water, our trees, be ways and something we can all agree on, right? Even if we don't agree about religious ideas, right? Can environmentalism be a resource that helps bring religions together? Maybe, I don't know. But at least it takes away the attention from, well, you believe this, I believe this, you believe, okay, let's forget about that. Can we agree that we need air? Can we agree that we need water? And trees, and food, right? Can we agree on these things? And maybe those are the more important things to agree on.
So the dialogue between religion is only about the sadness thing that is not. I think that what I understand about the dialogue is how we solve our particularity and we talk about it. So if I think that what is already happening in Asia. We saw how we solve the poverty, how we solve about the corruption, how we solve. But the crucial thing that makes this dialogue is, it's not work well. It's because our particularity about what I believe in, what I believe on, something like that. And there is another that can receive what I believe. In the other side, I think I can receive them, I can accept them, but they cannot accept them. So I think that this is what is about. What the dialogue is all about is about to see in what part we are saying, or we want to talk our difference, like you say. So if the dialogue is only in that, so I think the difference is falling down again in the same mess, common ground that we try to find.
I don't think so. I think that there's a way in which we can learn to respect differences by not focusing on them, by not making that the issue, right? So for me, I never think interreligious. I think interreligious dialogue that says, well, my God is this way, your God is this way. It's like, what's the point, right? Okay, great. But interreligious dialogue that says, okay, we have radically different visions of the way the world should be, and we can respect that. We can live differently, right? I don't have to agree with you on that. You don't have to agree with me on this. But whatever our visions are, they're going to need earth, air, water, and fire, or else there's nothing, right? So can we agree to live within these different visions without undermining the system that allows for those visions in the first place? That to me is the more important question, not the sort of theological debates about how many angels can fit on the head of these sorts of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. I can see that. In my opinion, that when we have a dialogue with other people that another religion, it's not about his faith must be same like what I understand about my faith, but it's about this same my difference.
Yeah.
In the cycle of this dialogue, it's only talk about, yeah, we need the same system, we need the same needs, but we never talk about receive my difference.
Yeah.
And this is the failure that I can see that because, yeah, okay, we need the same things, and then we can solve it, and then what? Something that the difference is come to be silent, not to become up.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't advocate that. That's not what I'm advocating for. I think that if you have this perspective, though, so if you have this perspective, then you don't care about someone's difference, right?
Yeah.
And if that's what you're talking about, I think that interreligious dialogue with someone like this is pointless.
That's what happened.
It's pointless, right? You're just going to bang your head against the wall. So, if that's the case, and if I only have a limited amount of energy and time on this planet before I'm dead, I'm not going to spend my time banging my head against this wall. I'm going to say, okay, fine. How can we work together? And I think that sometimes ecological issues can provide that way.
I adore.
Yeah, adore. Yeah, adore or something. So I'm not saying to forget about the differences, but I'm saying that I think that you and I could sit here and talk about our differences and learn to respect each other. I think that with someone like this, they would just say, okay, you're going to hell, you're going to hell, you're going to hell, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. And no amount of dialogue is going to change that.